Good afternoon and welcome to Person of Interest. There's a lot of movement at the station.
There was.
I know Brendan, our general manager, is the sound engineer, and he panicked.
Yeah, well,
he's gone to pieces.
Well, he's not used to it, mate. He's used to sitting back in that big comfy chair, making the big bucks.
I know. Anyway, welcome, Ross. Nice to see you back in
Good afternoon.
Good form, even though you've got a little bruise on your forehead, I note.
I should have ducked instead of weaved.
Well, either way, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
And it's also very good to have our special guest today. He's an absolute legend in the Australian music industry, not just as a performer, but also an actor. He's also a Vietnam veteran, which we're going to speak about. It's our very good friend and one of the greatest ever Australian rock and roll singers, Normie Rowe. Welcome, Normie.
Hi, Tone. Hi, Roscoe.
Good afternoon, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well.
I know you're in Perth, so it's morning over there. We've got a pretty RS day here in Melbourne. What's it like there?
What does RS mean? I'm not sure.
Ratchet.
No, Roscoe, please.
Don't
encourage him.
Did he swear?
He did.
Did he swear on the wireless?
It's not the first time.
On the radio, yeah.
On the wireless? No, it's the wireless. The wireless.
Oh.
Yeah, the day here, it's a little breezy and slightly cool. But it'll turn out to be a stunner later on. It's been really good weather while I've been over here. It's been fantastic.
Well, good. You can bring your suntan over here.
No, we haven't had time for suntan. We've been rehearsing and working and doing shows. I've been spending time with John Young, the one Johnny Young, the real thing.
Yep.
And we've been doing some shows here. We've got another one to do on Sunday, and it's and then it's off to Melbourne.
What's that? What's that play you're doing? I heard some rumours.
Oh, that's later on in the year. I'm doing not later on in the year, early next year. I'm doing a play called Senior Moments with another lad from the Mornington Peninsula, and none other than Sailor of the Century Tony Barber, and also Rubberface Max Gillies. So it should be a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And we're going all over the place with that one.
What is that type of show, no? What is it about?
Oh, look,
it's a play with music?
It's a university review, and nothing meant more. But it's good fun, and I'm sure that the audiences will love it.
Sounds good.
Sure they will. Tony thinks he's the host of this program.
I am the host. You're the second banana. Just
I'm
remember.
second banana. Okay, over to you, Tone.
Yes, okay, thank you. But please, Ross, I'll wave when you...
You're wasting air.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Hey, mate, let's go back to...
This bickering and fighting, I listen to you guys on the internet, and it's always bickering and fighting.
Yeah, but he starts
it.
He
starts
you
it.
always
I
start
never started.
You do, so you've had to apologise.
Listen to you.
Sorry.
You're like two married...
We are.
We're not joined, though.
Hey, mate, just go...
You're joined at the hipster.
Well, we are. Back to your early life, which has probably not got a great deal to do with your career in a sense. Was it New Northcote that you were born? That's where Mum and Dad brought me after arriving at the Women's Hospital in Melbourne. Back to Northcote, and just opposite the Albion Hotel, because it was the house was close to the hotel, and
fantastic.
That was the most important thing for Dad at the time.
Albie would have loved that, mate.
And your early life, your schooling.
A big social animal, my dad.
Yeah. Where did you go to school? It's a loaded question at the moment.
Well, I went to primary school was the Mary State School, or early it was called Miller Street, just by the Mary Bridge on St George's Road, and then I went on, and funnily enough, so did at a different time. So did the inimitable, and that's easy for me to say at this time of the day. Noel Ferrier went to the same school, and then to the same high school up the road at Northcote High.
Well, the reason I asked...
by the way, was an all-boys school then.
Yeah.
Yeah, how dare they change it after I left?
The reason I ask, I reckon down here, I speak about you occasionally, different people. I reckon there's about 300 people who are in the same grade as you. They all claim it's true though. There's a guy, John Skinner, I don't know, and a couple of others. I went to school with Normie. Yes. Must have been about 300 in your class.
It's funny though. That area spawned a lot of people who sort of. I think there was some sort of natural propulsion to try and get out of the area at the time, because it wasn't exactly what you would call a salubrious area just in those northern suburbs of Melbourne. I know that at high school and the dances that I used to work when I first started, when I was 12, 13 years old, a lot of the regulars at those dances became the characters portrayed in Underbelly.
Oh, yeah, that'd be right. Yeah, that would be right.
I mean, that'd be right. That sounds snooty from somebody south of the river.
No, I was in North Melbourne. I told you what, all the Morans, they're all there.
Judgmental.
There were gunshots in the ceiling in the pub, and tough days. North Melbourne was much like Northcote, I'm sure.
Never happened in Brisbane.
Normie, I just note reading that you probably pursued singing as a career after perhaps joining the school, a church choir, I think it was.
Yeah, well,
at primary school must have given you a bit of a...
I actually, my family weren't churchgoers, so when I was a little kid, I decided I wanted to go to Sunday school. So I dressed up in my Sunday best, as one did in those days, and I walked across. I was only in primary school, and I walked across St George's Road. You wouldn't do that today. And went to the little, I think it was the little Presbyterian church or Methodist church, just not far away from where I lived. And then I came back, and Mum said, "How did it go? What did you like going?" And I said, "I'm not going back there again." She said, "Why not?" And I said, "They swear. They swear all the time." And I said, and she said, "What do you mean they swear?" I said, "Oh, they say Jesus and Christ."
Well,
they were words we weren't allowed to say.
No, absolutely. I was just reading you. I think you're about 9 years of age at the time, so that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you go on to say around that time that your idol, which was one of mine too in a different way, was Cold Joy.
Yeah, well, our family was very close. It was always very close. And I miss my family very much. They've all gone, and I'm sort of the only one left of that small collective. But my big sister was a huge fan of Cold Joy's, and anything that was good for her was good enough for me. And I always loved it. And I have to say, I'm very proud to know that every now and then I can ring Cole, and Cole can ring me, and we have chats, and we have lunch together, and we laugh, and we have mutual friends, and we there's a lovely respect there. That for me, he'll always be my big idol, and it sustains because he's proven to me. He's proven to be off stage the very essence of the man that you see on stage.
So much so, I think, when about the age of 13, you sang one of his songs, and was it Lou Tupano's?
Yeah, Lou Tupano was a band leader and a piano accordionist. His brother was Enzo Tupano, and had a similar role in Sydney. And Lou owned a music school. I went along to the music school after spending a bit of time at the Victoria Banjo Club in Swanston Street. I was only such a little kid, getting on the tram every Wednesday with my money in my pocket and my receipt book. They'd always give you a receipt and stick it in the book for you. And you sit there with 40 different people, all learning the guitar. I don't know how anybody actually learned anything. And after a while, I felt that I wasn't progressing fast enough, so I went to the music school run by Lou Tupano. And funnily enough, there were some wonderful other young people who became very, very accomplished musicians. One is Mel Clark, with whom I went to high school. And Mel went on to join Tony Worsley and the Blue Jays, and eventually to Bullamakanka, and was part of the entity that wrote "Give Me a Home Amongst the Gum Trees."
Oh, okay.
Also was none other than the Strangers, John Farrar, who obviously went on to great heights in the United States and wrote things like Grease and You're the one that I want. Is it
Love?
You're the one that I want.
Love.
Love.
Yeah. You're the one that I love.
Yes,
I don't know.
And John Travolta, and and these people also have stayed exactly the same as they were when we first knew them, which is it's a real good thing, a really lovely thing to see that their success hasn't changed them.
Hey, Rowie, there's a lot of some of your colleagues would say that you possibly, with your guitar playing, and especially your tuning, need to go back to Lou Tapano's
Oh, that's disgusting.
school.
See, no wonder he gets into trouble. Why would you say that? Lou?
Well, thanks very much. I'm going to go on to this interview with Dennis Gist now.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Dennis Gist and I went to high school.
Dennis
that's
Gist.
the other one.
There you go.
That's the other one too.
And he and I, we respect each other, and we wouldn't dare say things like that to each other.
I agree with you.
Wyllie.
Hey, listen.
Just wait till I tell everybody about your escapades on the Sunshine Bus.
Hey. What happened on the bus stays on the bus.
That's only because you couldn't get out of the bus as fast as us.
Yeah, and they had to have it disinfected afterwards.
Exactly. Oh,
yes.
God.
Anyway,
Normie,
Normie, one of your songs we'd like to play, because it's called, of course, It's Not Easy. It's one of Australia's top 100 songs. That's where I got it from. A little story to go with that?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
Hi, this is Megan Gale, and when I'm on the Peninsula, I love listening to RPPFM.
Welcome back with our special guest today, Normie Rowe.
The Friday on My Mind was written by Poms and Dutchmen and Scots and recorded in England.
Yes.
So it's hard to claim that it's an Australian song.
Yeah.
But Eagle Rock was written here in Australia by Ross, and Daddy Cool obviously had an enormous success with that. And I've always been, for them, very disappointed that it didn't take off in the United States
It's a classic.
I believe
It's
it
a
should
classic,
have been.
though, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it was a walk-up start, and how it hasn't been covered in the States by other bands, to me, is absolutely surprising.
Yeah.
Just a perfect thing. And the minute you hear that down, 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 bum, 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 the dance floor just fills up.
Yeah, I know. I've seen him work down here, and you're exactly right. Everyone jumps up. Everybody's into it.
How does that go again, Norm?
How does that? Only a certain, no. You only get one take.
Come on, because that's going to lead us into the song.
Ross is being clever.
I'm being. Go, Brendan.
Hi, this is Sigrid Thornton speaking. I love listening to the radio, and when I'm on the Peninsula, I love listening to RPPFM.
Welcome back with our special guest today, Normie Rowe, the great, legendary, iconic. I can think of a few more adjectives. I keep going.
Aussie.
Well, we know that. That's not an adjective, Ross.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Anyway, welcome back, Normie. It's great to talk to you. We just want to jump forward a bit now. We've sort of dismissed you with the 60s for the moment and head towards Vietnam.
Yeah,
now,
that was fun.
I know that you've relayed this story, or had to, because people like us keep asking it over the many years since you've returned. And it's really, and I've heard the answers, but maybe some of our other listeners may not have. But it was about when you, I think you were driving down Hoddle Street, got pulled up by a cop, and as it happened, he said, "Oh, you're born on the same birth date, same day, same year, and how come you went to Vietnam and he didn't?" Is that's roughly along the lines?
Yeah, it's roughly the right. Was Alexandra Avenue, straight off the end of the freeway, and I was going too fast, and I lost my licence for 6 months. But there was a lesson, an object lesson that I've stuck to since then. I thought, well, I won't do that again. Anyway, that's right. He was born on the same day as me. And the bell started to ring, but even by that time, it was 10 years past. And
Sure.
what can you do over something that's already happened and you can't change?
Well, I think I've heard you very proudly say that it's never worried you. You were ready to serve, and I think your dad said something about being born naked and dying naked along those lines. But so that didn't really concern you greatly. You were proud and happy to serve our country.
Well, yeah. Dad was part of an essential service. He used to work making woolen fabric for uniforms and blankets and things like that for the soldiers in the Second World War. And every time he went to sign up, he was rejected, And it must have been a terrible state of affairs for people, pardon me, in my dad's situation, when, there are other families with their sons of the same age were off fighting a war and in mortal danger, and he's there going off to work as usual. And it must have been a terrible thing when people looked at you in such a sort of a judgmental way.
I suppose they did it on some occasions. I can't imagine it really, but men had to stay here and serve too.
I mean, walk a mile in my shoes, So anyway,
exactly.
He never really said too much about it, but I'm quite sure he felt it very, very strongly. He was very much the Australian male of the day, and a lot of his mates went. A lot of his family members were members of the Air Force, and various. In fact, my mum's brother, Uncle Norman, for whom I was named, was a bomber crewman. So everybody had family in the Second World War.
Well, like all wars,
Australia.
And like all wars, they were very young men,
Yeah, and I then felt it in primary school when it came to Anzac Day and Remembrance Day and all that sort of thing, and the kids were wearing proudly their dad's medals, as they should have. And I had no medals to wear, and I always had at the back of my head that if I had a chance to do that for my kids, that they would have something to recognise that the family had served the country, I would do it. It's sort of, I suppose it's weird for a young person to think like that. But anyway, that was part of my thinking. There was a whole lot of other things. I always thought that it was good enough for a bank jockey or a auto mech or anybody in any other pursuit to be called up. It was good enough for a pop singer. And
there you go.
But the thing that I really hated was the way that the government went about it. It was so unfair, and they did what they believed was fair, but it just wasn't.
Did they put pressure on you? I know Harold Holt, basically, I assume it was his idea that he wanted Australia's Elvis to go to war.
Yeah.
But what sort of pressure did that put on you?
It was actually the military attaché to the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah.
He was a captain, and he suggested that Australia needed an Elvis Presley, and I was the closest thing to it at the time. So by hell or high water, I was going in, and it took 3 ballots. Now,
it's weird, isn't it, that one?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be at the memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Museum
next Monday
on the Armistice Day, on Remembrance Day,
Phillip Island.
All of the marbles are there, and as they came out and everything like that, but they had 3 ballots before they got me, and even then, I was the only person born on that day, on the 1st of February 1947. Yes, that makes me 72. Save you the maths. Who was called up?
Yeah.
And
it's weird.
Buddy, you're doing the Phillip Island Vietnam Vets on Monday, the Remembrance Day.
The museum there, yeah.
Yep, and then there's obviously Remembrance Day happening here on the peninsula as well. In Frankston, there's a big one, which you can't be in 2 places at once. I understand that, but we hope that one goes well on the island for you. But we're also doing on Friday the 15th. Is that right? Yeah, yes. Friday the 15th. We're doing the Rosebud RSL.
Yeah, Yeah, just a Q&A with you and Tony.
The Q&A, and we're going to film it as well for streaming and record it for radio. So
that's going to be. I've never really. I've interviewed a lot of people over the years, but I've never done one quite like we're going to do down there. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it could be a beginning of something really good. I'm hoping that we've got more than just me as an ex-serviceman there.
Oh, yeah.
Be really fantastic. Yeah. And all of the proceeds, not just some of them, but all of the proceeds are going to
Soldier On.
Soldier On, which is one of my favourite... I don't call it a charity. It's one of my favourite support groups who do such magnificent work. Wounded Soldiers also do terrific stuff. But there's a bunch of ex-service organisations that help out. And can I just say, if you are listening at home and you're an ex-serviceman and if you feel anything like feeling alone or anything like that, do pick up the phone, ring up the counselling service. They're good people, they're nice people. I've actually used it myself. And once again, that word judgmental doesn't come into their vernacular. I just want to know.
Returning soldiers from Vietnam weren't treated very kindly in Australia by Australians. It's quite different.
I don't think we're very good at that. We're getting better. But I don't think we're very good at it at this stage. I think we're better than most countries. We certainly, once you get into the Department of Veterans Affairs system, you're pretty well looked after. But the difficulty in getting into that system is sometimes disgusting, and some of those public servants have a lot to answer for. There was one in particular in my case who said, "You can't possibly have post-traumatic stress disorder. You're in the public eye." That's sort of like saying you can't possibly play golf. You've got two left hands.
Yes. Tell Doug's
if you wish, could you elaborate on your time in Vietnam? I think you're there certainly for 2 years. Well, I can't relate to it at all, of course, because I wasn't there, but it's just a total change of lifestyle coming out from particularly you, I suppose, and being thrown into...
I've got to say, anybody who hasn't done the sort of training that the Australian military gives their personnel, I think would be hard pushed to understand it. But we do train our people very, very well to survive.
Yes.
You've got to understand, especially at that time where there was less than half the population that we have today.
True.
And pretty much everybody knew somebody who was going off to Vietnam, even if it wasn't their family member. And so, it was important for the military to train us, to give us the best, every chance of surviving the experience of being there. And I think that's still part of the ethos of the military in Australia.
And what was the spirit of camaraderie like?
It's a microcosm of the entire population. Yeah. But and so things can go wrong. But nevertheless, they get it pretty right most of the time.
I've heard that you've made many, many good friends from your time there. What was the spirit, I suppose, of camaraderie like there? On a daily basis?
Oh, look, it was on a daily basis. It was like, I suppose if you've ever experienced being in a rock and roll band, being in a cricket team, being in a netball team, going away on a holiday somewhere all together and sharing the fun and the frivolity, but add to that a huge element of danger, there it is sort of in a nutshell, as much as I can explain it with the time we've got here.
Yeah. Well, that's probably something we will develop down the track. Now, because of that, I've got a song here which you didn't choose, but you did record, called Going Home, and I thought originally it was associated with Vietnam, which is really not, but now it is. It was... I never
thought about it until we started looking at going back to a lot of the old things that we'd recorded and starting to play them on stage and how we could actually achieve it. And then I realised that it would have been a perfect anthem for the young blokes coming back, or the young girls coming back from Vietnam. It was,
well, look, I came across this on YouTube. I was just looking what was around, and there's a fantastic film clip of you getting off the plane, going to meet your mum, and I think your dad worked at Peerless, where they make
Peerless Emulsions, which still exists today.
Well, the film clip, it's in black and white, of course, is fantastic. But do you recall, or have you seen that recently?
No.
Oh, it's sensational.
I've seen it.
Well, it's really wonderful. It's you meeting your mum, and your dad comes out of the factory and whatever. So the words fit perfectly. In fact, we're going to use it.
That was for R&R. I came back for R&R.
Oh, was it?
And I let my sister know, because Dad had been cook with a cook heart, and I didn't want to shock him to walk through the door and make sure he was going to be okay. And the doctor said, probably the best thing.
Oh, well, it's very moving.
Mum just couldn't believe her eyes. I think I tear up every time I generate that image in my own mind, because it's embossed there.
Well, you're going to get the chance to see that. We'll be doing that at the Rosebud RSL just as a way of introduction.
Wonderful.
It's fantastic.
Get the Kleenex out, Norm. Here we go.
Oh, stop that, Ross.
Oh, sorry, mate.
So insensitive.
He's my buddy.
But you still...
I can talk to him, mate.
I'll talk to you in a minute.
Woman John Rowe. How old were you then?
That was 67.
About 18, I suppose, 19, something like that.
I think the voice has changed a bit since then, buddy.
Yeah, it has.
I was just
you got the down there somewhere.
I was just thinking how, now that is really attached to you now in Vietnam, but I was thinking listening to it, how ironic it was that you ended up playing Harold Holt.
Yes. I was going to say that before.
A number of times since too. I played him in the television.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
The television docudrama, The Prime Minister is Missing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I played him in Normie, the musical.
Yeah.
And in one other sort of spoof thing that I did a little bit later on, and I've put that to bed now. I don't need to do Harold. Because I was the only Harold Holt who ever got to use the towel at the end of the swim.
Norm, thinking about that, how much, when you say, that it was inevitable that you would go to over there, how much then coming back was the Army PR machine involved?
Well, as much as they could try and do it, but I wasn't interested, to be quite honest. They called me up to be a soldier, and I wasn't going to play their PR game, so I didn't. And unless I thought it was good for me or for something else, which I did. I shot some film footage for Legacy. Mm-hmm. There was always a photographer around, but and it became good mate Dennis Gibbons, who has now left the planet. Of course, he's left us an enormous document of Legacy with photographs at the Australian War Memorial. You can see those. And it's fortunately that I had Dennis around, because a lot of my service was captured by his camera, and also David Coombs, who took some of the video footage.
Yeah. Well, as you say, mate, that's in the past, and hopefully it will just quietly sit there and as life goes on. Mate, we're going to do a quiz for you. We're running out of time. We're not running out of time. We're on time, but we're okay.
What the hell is he talking about?
Ain't necessarily so, or MacArthur Park. Ain't necessarily so, or MacArthur Park. Which one would you like the listeners to hear on the way out?
It ain't necessarily so.
Oh, I thought so.
Why didn't you?
You said MacArthur Park, and I said anyway.
Well, I want to hear MacArthur Park.
No, you don't.
I knew you'd have MacArthur Park sitting there. So
well, you said so.
No. Of course, MacArthur Park. If you've got Andy Williams' version of it, it would be
we do.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, excellent.
All right.
Wait till you hear the high note.
All right. Okay, so we've given It Ain't Necessarily So the flick.
Yeah, give it the flick. I'll sing it for everybody on the foreshore at Rosebud next Friday.
Well, absolutely, mate. And And yes, look, by the look of it, mate, it's going to be huge that weekend. And you've got the red eye out of Perth on Sunday night.
This Sunday coming, yes. Straight down to Phillip Island.
God help
the show there, and then on Friday at
Peninsula,
of course, at Rosebud Foreshore, and then on Sunday we're at the Memo, which is where we recorded It Ain't Necessarily So back in 1965.
Oh, is that right? Oh, there you go. Oh, well, that'll be good. What was I going to say to you? And the boys are all well. The band is still together, and
everybody's good. We're doing a couple of shows with Marcy, and one of those shows also with Bobby Bright.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to play Bobby's lorry.
Yeah.
We'll be my honour.
Yeah.
And we will have a lot of fun on those shows.
I want to ask Bobby whether this is true about Laurie. One night on stage, apparently his amplifier started to smoke, and the reason it was smoking is because he put his half-eaten hamburger in it to keep it warm.
He was chips and Coca-Cola.
It's either that or a bucket of chips.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And no wonder he passed, because that's all he'd lived on. Tone, you got anything?
No, I was just... yes, I have, sorry. This has nothing to do with it. It's actually to do with my mother, but it relates to Normie in a funny way. My mother passed away, I think, just about 2 years ago at the age of 100. And
goodness, what a great innings.
Oh, she's fantastic, and Ross knows her well. But
dear old Myra.
When you're down at the Vietnam Veterans, you'll find her name on the board. She's an honorary Vietnam veteran.
Oh, how lovely.
She raised... Oh, she was a great fundraiser even as a kid. There was something happening in the backyard, Catholic Hour or whatever it was. But she devoted her later life to raising funds for her boys, as she called them, which were the Vietnam veterans in the Yarra Valley. And she became the longest and oldest serving president of Legacy in Australia.
Mm.
Oh,
so
wonderful!
Great commitment.
That's a great family, a great family tradition. Then
even presented her with a flag, didn't they?
They did. Legacy made a new legacy. The new Legacy flag is her design. Strangely enough.
There you go.
So she was quite committed to that. So anyway, that's my connection.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So it's all good, Normie. What else? So we're looking forward to seeing you on next Friday.
Yeah.
And looking forward to perhaps both the Rosebud RSL. I hope we make some good money there. I'm going to check up today. Otherwise, we'll paper the house and make them pay.
Yes, and as Stan the Man Rose said, be there or be square.
Be square, indeed.
Exactly. Look, and thanks very much today.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks to my second banana, Ross D. Wyllie. I have to talk to him. I'm sorry about some of these indiscretions today, but that's not unusual.
Yeah, but that's Ross. Yeah. We expect that.
Well, we do, but the listeners have been complaining. It's the problem.
All right, Tony, thank you very much. Roscoe, lovely to be with you, mate.
Enjoy your day. See you.
Mind you, at our age, Ross, it's nice to be anywhere.
That's exactly right. I'll see you next week, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.